life is hard. There are really deep valleys and then really, really high mountains to climb sometimes to get out of those valleys. Mm-hmm. And when you get to those high points, it feels really great. And then if something rocks you again, that hurts, right? There's disappointment, there's loss, there's breakups, there's challenges, there's loss of jobs, there's illnesses, all kinds of things that happen. But all of that can be experienced and gotten through and overcome.
Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you will find great conversations with interesting people who have been called to serve. We'll meet impactful charities, dive deep into pressing health topics, and learn from servant leaders who are working to see, be, and spread light. At the end of each episode, we hope you're inspired to realize that you have your own unlimited potential to change the world for the better. Join us as we work to create a region of the healthiest, most purpose-driven people on the planet. Welcome back to the DMF podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Isaacson. Thanks for joining me in another conversation highlighting a charity that is doing important work in our community. Today, I'm happy to sit down with an organization that is shining light in the darkest areas of people's lives by reducing the mental health stigma, building hope, and ending suicide. Our guest today is going to be sharing with us how we can start to have more open communication with our kids around mental health. Also, some tips for parents and kids to bounce back from life's hardest moments and how we can find healthy expression of our emotions. I'm excited to introduce Elizabeth Med, the founder and director of the 463 Foundation. Elizabeth shares with us her family's story of losing her son to suicide and how they started a foundation called the 463 Foundation to spread suicide prevention and resources because of it. As Elizabeth shares today, life is hard, but everything can be experienced and overcome. The only thing that can't is making that final decision to take your own life. And no one should ever feel that that is the only way out, because it's not. So whether you're looking to hear about a story of tragedy that is now touching many lives, or just hoping to learn more about suicide prevention, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So let's get into it. All right, everyone, we are in the studio today with Elizabeth Med. And Elizabeth, thank you for being here. We are super excited to just be hearing from you today and what you have for us. So Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. Any opportunity we get to share our story, where I get to talk about some of the things as being a mom that I never experienced before, I'm experienced now, is always a great opportunity.
Yes. And before we even started, I was even just saying to you, as we just at DMF and just me personally, we know that you and the 463 Foundation are just such leaders in the community. You're shining light in a lot of dark topics and conversations in our society, and that's not easy work. So we just thank you for what you do and just being such a leader of light with us in our community. So my first question for you, as we just kind of break the ice and get into it, is why do you do what you do, and what are you most passionate about in your role?
Oh, well, I do what I do. For those listening that don't know, we started the 463 Foundation, my husband, Todd, my daughter, Selma, and myself, after the suicide death of our 15-year-old son, Liam. Mm-hmm. He died February 1st, 2021. No red flags, no warnings, no symptoms. There were no crises leading up to what happened. We left for an hour, came home, and he had taken his life. And so we started the foundation because we didn't want anyone else to find themselves in the same situation that we were in, or as kids, as youth, as teens, find themselves in the position that Liam found himself in, which was a kind of one-off. He found himself in some extreme emotion and didn't know how to handle it, and did the one thing that you can't undo, the one thing you can't take back. And so when after he died, we're like, well, we have to do something. We can't just sit around and, let it go to waste, so to speak. And so if it can happen to Liam, it could happen to any kid out there. And if it happened to Liam, how many other kids are struggling, suffering, holding in pressures and fears that they're not telling anybody. And so we started the foundation to make sure that those were addressed, that we were talking about them, that you kind of said it yourself, shine the light. We wanted to shine the light on those dark places because we all have them. We all have fears. We all have insecurities. We all have unknowns, anxieties, things that make us sad, disappointments in life. And so we just want to keep shining the light and bringing those conversations out into the open and supporting our youth and letting them know that we're here to listen to them.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for just sharing your story and how powerful it is and truly what a difference it's making, turning tragedy into such a powerful message for our community and for our nation, because everyone has by now seen all the statistics of how our youth are suffering.
Oh, yeah.
Times are not easy. There is so much pressure, influences, distractions thrown on our children, and the crisis seems to be just beginning, you could say. And that's why having conversations and helping kids learn how to deal with these emotions, how do we get parents together and build this resilience for our kids is so important. So, we always talk a lot about technology use and social media at DMF, and that is becoming more and more out there in our community of just how that might be a factor that is affecting our youth mental health.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that of what can we do to prevent youth mental health when we are in a world where we are so consumed by online behaviors and pressures and distractions.
Right. So it's really difficult. We're kind of in this conundrum because when I was growing up, and I hate saying that to kids, like, oh, when I was a kid.
Right.
But when I was growing up, even to a degree when you were growing up, we didn't have cell phones in our pockets constantly. So if you were being bullied at school, you could go home, get off the bus or walk home or whatever it was and get away from it for a while. You could separate. And now you can't. Now it kind of follows you everywhere. But it's not just bullying, kids being mean. It's kind of this secondary bullying of, oh, well, look, they got invited to this, or look, now they're out shopping and they got this cool new outfit. And, maybe you can't afford that, or maybe your parents are like, you have enough, you don't need more. Or you see someone go on a great vacation and you're not going on that vacation. And so we don't think about those things. They're not bullying per se, but they're constant reminders of something else going on. And that's just what people are posting. So that might not even be, there's truth in it, but it might not even be really 100% what's being shown. And there may have been a lot of drama or sadness or anxiety leading up to that or in it, and you don't see that. And so that's hard in itself, that our kids are constantly bombarded with information, that us as adults are constantly bombarded with information. I always like to say, correlation is not causation, but, you talk about this mental health crisis, and we really, truly are in an epidemic right now. And one thing I will say is in some of the research that we've done, since 2007, there's been a 57% increase in youth suicides and suicide attempts. And I'm not great at statistics. I'm more of the heart person. Todd, my husband, he's really good at statistics and numbers and all of those things. But this is something that we keep finding over and over again. And while those numbers are dropping, and we can, touch on that later, but while those numbers are dropping, I think that's hugely important to recognize. And again, correlation is not causation. The iPhone was released in 2007. And I'm not blaming iPhone, right? This is a social media. This is a constant connection that is a counterfeit connection to something else, right? So it's not picking on one device or one company or one organization or any of that stuff. What it's alluding to is the fact that we have reduced our human connectivity face to face, where we're learning social skills, we're learning social cues, we're learning how to have conversations and face those conversations head on and work through those emotions without a distraction. And so the more that we pick up a device instead of, just leaving it set down and thinking through what's going on, what we're struggling with, what emotions we're feeling, why we're feeling them, even if you don't know what they're called, just like knowing that you've got this stuff going on, we keep distracting ourselves by picking something up or turning on the TV Or, I mean, how many times have you been sitting watching a show with your family or with a friend, and all of a sudden you pick up your phone for no reason? I mean, even just those little things, you are right there when you do that, reducing that human connection. And the more we put something between us and other people, the more we're going to see our mental health suffer.
100%.
We're meant to have people in our lives.
Yes. And we are more connected than we've ever been, but yet we keep finding these statistics and we keep hearing stories, and everyone can relate to feeling more lonely and isolated still, even though we're supposed to be, so-called connected.
Right.
But it's not that human connection. And you alluded before a little bit to that fear of missing out for our kids and how they have these false images that are thrown at them 24/7, creating these unreal expectations and desires of, like we're supposed to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, but we're so self-consumed.
Right.
And so I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, and even seeing the progress of somebody else, like, okay, you're a 15-year-old kid, maybe it's baseball or swimming or art or whatever. And then you turn around and see the news where this 12, 13, 14-year-old is doing something epic, and they're on the news and everybody's recognized for it. And you're putting all of your heart and soul into what it is that you're doing. And you're like, but now I feel way less than, because this person's outshining me. And by nature, humans are competitive. Even if you're not a competitive person, by nature, we are an apex species, because we have this drive to perform, to do better, to succeed, all of these things. It's stronger than in some people than others, but we still all have it. And we address a lot of that through comparison. And so when you have a constant comparison in your pocket or on a screen or whatever, it tends to eat away at what you are actually doing really well at. And that eats away at your self-esteem, and that eats away at your feeling successful, and creates unrealistic expectations for what is actually, appropriate and successful and good and healthy. And it just changes how our youth are developing.
100%. So, I think all parents, even if you don't have kids yet, we all feel this as individuals.
Yeah.
So what would be your recommendation to parents when it comes to having that open communication on social media use, phone use, having more in-person, face-to-face things with your family versus, you're watching TV together, yet you're on your phone? What is your just like maybe your experience or your just recommendation on like how do you go about that?
Well, in anything in life, we have to work to not just develop healthy habits, but keep healthy habits. And one of those that we really need to work on as individuals, as communities, as societies, is putting the phones down. Not always having the TV on. If you're having dinner together at your dinner table, there's really no reason, unless there's like a family emergency and you're trying to get a hold of somebody, to have your phone on the table. You're at your house with your family eating dinner, put it aside, do something like that. But so just training ourselves not to constantly pick up that device. But it's interesting. So you asked, like, how do you talk to your kids about that? And it does get awkward and it's weird. So talking to them about sex and drugs and alcohol and all of these different things, responsibilities, you just kind of have to put it right in there. And social media usage, that's a hard one for us. So Selma was 9 when Liam died. And Liam had a couple social media things, but it's even, kids are even more connected now, I would say, even than they were, 4.5 years ago. So she plays sports and she does these things. She has extracurricular activities and everything. And she doesn't have social media and she doesn't want social media. But the reality of this day and age is people communicate through DMs on Instagram, through Snapchat, through all of these things.
And you have to be up with the trends.
You have to be up with the trends. Mm-hmm. So as a parent, and even as a kid, like, she doesn't want social media. I don't really want her to have social media. But at the same time, I also want her to know what's going on with this team or this activity or, these other things, because that's part of the experience of being in high school. They just communicate it now through social media instead of those like face-to-face things. I will add, it's a lot of parents, could go either way on this one, But to be honest, the whole no phones in school decision, yes, I can see both sides. I can see a lot of the concerns of it. What I'm most excited about for this, it's not even classroom distractions. Like that's kind of the main point, but that's not even what I'm excited for with this. What I'm really excited about is actually those hallway experiences, right? Going class to class, sitting in the lunchroom, the cafeteria, whatever the main space is, whatever those transitional spaces are between the actual school learning, that is where our kids are going to benefit most from this rule, because now they got to talk to each other. And I mean, they were before, but they were doing it through devices. And so now it's going to be face to face. It's going to be seeing the eye contact, seeing the smiles, seeing the frowns, watching that body language. And that I'm excited to see. It's going to take a few years to see how that changes behavior and everything, but I'm excited to see that. I'm excited for our kids because I think that's going to be really healthy for them.
Yes, I could not agree more, because even just, the younger kids in my life that I'm around and just their experience of walking those transition times in the hallway, and they're like, I don't want to make eye contact with people. Like, they're just like, they look on their phone and they walk, and it's just a sad picture to like picture all of them doing that.
It's the easy out. It's, I talk a lot about resilience when I'm talking in middle schools and high schools, and even now at the college level. I talk a lot about resilience, and building resilience. One of those things is not being able to pick up your phone in a hallway and be distracted by the uncomfortable like eye contact or, oh, that's kind of weird. I don't like what's going on there. Instead of avoiding it through a device, you have to find ways within yourself to either avoid or engage or create, contact, connection. And so that's exciting, because those actual things of doing, of living, of being, that's where resiliency is built. And that's where it develops and continues to be strength. So you don't get to say, oh, I'm uncomfortable here, I'm going to pick out my phone. And I myself, and I always have, and since Liam's died, I've actually recognized it for what it was. I've always been a little socially awkward, and I am shy, and I don't really I'm not great at small talk. And so if I was in high school now and I had a phone, I would be the first person to pick up my phone and be like, I am not going to talk about the weather for the 18th time today. But at the same time, that builds skill. Like you develop as a person by kind of facing those small fears.
Totally. And I love that you're already touching a little bit on resilience, and we've talked a little bit, alluding to self-esteem. And so I want to kind of focus back on youth mental health. Yeah. Obviously, technology is a factor that is impacting it, but do you see any other factors that are impacting youth mental health today?
Well, there's a lot of things. We put a lot of pressure on our kids now in everything, in getting good grades, even in sports, like for whatever reason, this drive of, hey, you could play for the NFL, you could play professional baseball, you could be on this team, and that's awesome, right? Like, we always want to encourage and empower our kids to strive for better, but also realizing that expectation, the percentages of that actually happening. And so just being realistic about some of those things, but those are pressures that our kids have on them. And it's not that that's wrong. It's just that they just have a lot going on, and a lot more going on, and a lot less downtime than I ever did as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so those pressures add up and they build up. And when you have distractions and you're not taking the time to unwind and disconnect, and is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it running? Is it reading? Is it listening to music, art, whatever that is, yoga, whatever it is for you? Even as a kid, those emotions aren't getting the release that they need. And so we need to continue to work on sleep habits, continue to work on healthy diets. There's so many things out there that energy drinks are not great for kids. They're not great for adults. I mean, my husband's probably rolling his eyes right now because I do like the occasional energy drink, but at the same time, they're not good for our kids. They shouldn't be drinking them. They increase anxiety and stress. And then when that energy comes down, then now they're having a crash from it. Same thing with sugar. It's all these little things that they have access to times 1,000 than I did growing up. And all these little things, when you add them all up, are can play a diminishing role in the mental health of our youth.
Yes, and all these things, like these added factors you're even listing, I know there's so much more, but it seems to be a common theme that they're all things that we're starting to normalize in society.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's, I think, what is scary for me. And so for parents who are listening, it might get harder and harder to recognize if there are some mental health challenges coming up in your child, just because things are getting normalized. We feel weird. We don't know how to address things. So I want to talk about this area a little bit with you of just how to address that as a parent. So first off, what are some common things or signs to look for that are showing that there might be a mental health challenge going on in your child?
Yeah. So some fairly easily identifiable signs are change in behavior. Is your once kind of quiet, well-mannered kid all of a sudden having outbursts or just changes and things like that? Are they, changes in how they're participating in school? Do you have a really good student that is all of a sudden failing or not wanting to do school or not wanting to go to practice or morning weights or any kind of change in behavior? Change in not wanting to do things that they once loved, like, oh, I don't really care about going to practice tonight. I don't really care about doing this or whatever. Once in a while you might be like, okay, you're tired, you're exhausted, I get it. That happens. We all need a break, right? But if it's something that is consistent, not wanting to hang out with friends anymore, canceling plans, things like that. Oh, hey, they're all getting together for this. No, that's okay. I don't want to go. And normally they're the kid that wants to do that kind of thing. Those are things to pay attention to. Changes in eating habits. Eating, it doesn't just mean eating less, eating more, eating less, eating, let's say they normally have a pretty healthy diet and now you're seeing a lot more junk food consumption, things like that, right? We all tend to lean on the candy more than the broccoli when we're upset, right? So things to watch. Sleep, changes in sleep are a huge indicator that there is something amiss, right? Whether it's sleeping too much, not sleeping enough. The problem is, and this is something again I talk about when I meet with youth, is make sure for the youth, tell your parent, because if they tuck you in at night, they don't know what you're doing when you go to bed until you wake up in the morning. They don't know if you laid in bed and cried yourself to sleep at night. They don't know if you tossed and turned all night long or had scary nightmares. So if they said, hey, how'd you sleep last night? Don't say fine. Don't say everything was all right. And as a parent, just kind of pay attention to that, right? And of course, any parent and, friend, whatever, any parent, your child more than anybody else. So even if you're not seeing these things, we didn't see any of these things with Liam. So even if you're not seeing these things with Liam, but if you get this kind of spidey sense, which didn't even have that, but if you have a spidey sense, hey, something's not quite right, this is different, lean into that. Your child, lean into that and start having conversations. And, they're going to be awkward. Just embrace it. Don't make it confrontational. Don't make it about getting good grades or getting something done or accomplishing tasks. Don't make it about that. Just keep it real and human, but your kid better than anybody else. So even with all those signs and symptoms and warnings, if you feel like something's amiss, it probably is.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes having those conversations are difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a stigma around mental health for sure.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for parents of how to actually have that conversation or, establishing regular check-ins and how important that is? But how do you, within the family, establish that communication where your kids feel comfortable to come to you and be honest that they didn't sleep good? Or, how do you establish that within a family?
So it comes to modeling behavior. As with anything that we do as parents, be a good model of behavior and communication. So if you have a rough day at work, come home and don't say, yeah, work was fine. You can come home and say, it was rough. I was struggling with this coworker or this deadline or this task that I was given that I didn't understand. And I was feeling anxious or nervous or sad or overwhelmed. And take it a step further, even say, I didn't really know what to do about it, so I went for a walk, or I drank a glass of water, or I asked for help. Like following up or following through with then also what you did about it. One thing as parents, once we model this behavior of talking about feelings and talking about emotions, like that's the best way to establish it, is just do it, right? But if you're concerned about your child and you want to talk to them and you want to ask questions, definitely don't call a family meeting. Definitely don't, like I said, don't make it about good grades or accomplishing tasks. And honestly, especially for young men, but I would say even anybody's personality types, it's probably best not to do it face to face. It's probably best to do it in a car ride when they can kind of look off and you can look out, or if you play catch with your child, or, go fishing or do art, like find a way to make it part of something where they have the ability to kind of look off or look at the ground or fidget and really just talk through it and allow for space. Like let silence be there, acknowledge their feelings, and don't try to fix it. Don't try to solve it. Don't say, well, when I was a kid, just be there and listen and sit in it. We talked about that a little earlier with devices, or making it like we use them to not have to sit in our uncomfortable emotions or uncomfortable experiences in hallways at school. When you're having these conversations with your kid, you need to sit in it. And again, going back to modeling behavior, if you can sit and listen and support your child, they learn that too, but they also learn that, hey, I'm having this rough time. If I can be with someone and just sit in it, I can get through that too.
Did you know that medical expenses are the #1 cause of bankruptcy? If you want to help an individual or family experiencing a health crisis, loss of life, or other trauma, head to lendahandup.org to support a neighbor in need today. If you want to learn more about the silent epidemic of digital addiction, learn to spot the warning signs of child sexual abuse, or are interested in starting a charitable fund for a cause you're passionate about, head to dacmed.org today. Yes, and that is so encouraging just to hear. And I love how you talked about the modeling behavior, because it's monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. If a child can see, oh, mom and dad can do hard things, and like they told me that they did something hard and they told me what they learned from it. Mm-hmm. That is like right there instilling more hope and resilience in that child than being fearful and not knowing how to sit in those uncomfortable situations, right, or those uncomfy feelings and emotions that come, and then bottling those up because they don't know what to do with them.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is for any of us, when those emotions come, and think about it for our kids and developing, and they seem to be developing younger and younger and younger every year. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. But major life events for anybody are major stress triggers. The difference is, as adults, we tend to think of our major life events like, making sure we're going to our job, that we're getting paid, that we're paying the mortgage, that we're on top of our bills, that we did our taxes. And for a major life event, you're thinking like divorce and, or spouse death or some really horrific thing. For a kid, getting a D when you're normally an A student, not making a team, or even sitting on a bench when normally you're a starter or, pretty close to a starter, not making a play or getting a secondary role instead of a primary role. Like those are their major life stressors. Breakups are a big one. Rejection from a friend, that's a big one. And so really understanding that those are everything to our kids and supporting them through that. And just, like I said, just kind of being with them through that and knowing that those are going to trigger stress. So when you say, how do you talk to your kids, pay attention to what's going on, right? Like if you know they have tryouts coming up, obviously support them, cheer them on, go through those things, but then also just kind of like take a step back and watch and pay attention and see, okay, how are they navigating this? And then, of course, having some of those conversations while you're making dinner together, just, hey, how are tryouts going? Are you worried about this? Are you scared of this? Did you feel this way? I mean, asking those questions just straight out, again, not face to face in a confrontational way, but in a very supportive, listening way.
Yes. And it seems like these regular check-ins should be every day.
Oh, yeah.
Just in conversation, in that supportive conversation, you're just feeling out like, how are they doing? You're maybe sharing some of your experiences. Because I think sometimes, a lot of times, parents, they're maybe afraid to address anything.
Right.
Because it's uncomfortable for them, because nobody taught them how to do that.
Right. Oh, yeah. Because they didn't talk about this when we were kids. And so as a parent, like, we're learning as we go. And that's huge, but you got to do it. Don't be afraid. And honestly, if it's whatever you talk to them about, however you have those conversations, and there's some great resources to help navigate some of those conversations, which, hopefully we'll have time to touch on those at the end, but just have them. And if you're really, really worried about your child, there's a lot of things that you can do that you can help support them. And, I should say this straight out. If you're ever worried about anybody having thoughts of suicide, never be afraid to ask them, and ask them straight out. Hey, are you thinking of harming yourself? Are you having thoughts of suicide? Because if they are, one, you're not going to put the thought in their head. It's the word and the actions are already out there in society, right? You're never going to put anything in their head. But if they are, and you say that, you just opened up a whole well of safety, because by saying that, you alone break that stigma by asking, hey, I'm watching you and I'm feeling this and seeing this. Are you thinking of suicide? All you're doing is opening up that much more support and love for that person.
Because for something that they might be bottling up and feeling so alone in, you're helping shine light into it.
Exactly.
And it might not be received, or, they might not respond in a great way, because that's hard to shine light into, a dark spot in someone's life, but you are offering a hand and extending that safety. That's so good. So going back to just like the expression of feelings and having those conversations, how important is it to keep things age appropriate? Do you have any tips for what that looks like, for an elementary school child, and how we start talking about, coping with stress and expressing emotions versus maybe someone with a high schooler?
Right. So especially in elementary school age, one of the best things to do is talk about emotions, because especially with elementary kids, there's anger, there's, friendship, there's disappointment, there's love, and, especially like, I love mom and dad, I love my dog, I love my cat, I love rainbows, I love the sunshine, like thinking about those things. And so being able to, especially with younger kids, talk about feelings and emotions and learning to label them early on so that they know what they are. I mean, I'm 45 years old, and there are things and emotions that I'm experiencing that I have no idea what they are. They're probably 10 emotions wrapped into one, or 100 emotions wrapped into one. And I can't define them, and that's okay. But I've learned either code words or ways to signal to people that I'm feeling like, who knows what, right? And so being able to work with younger kids and talk about, emotions and feelings, especially those really big ones. Like anger is a really big one that can lead to a lot of poor decisions. Like even as adults, like we tend to make some really bad decisions through anger and fear. And so being able to talk about those, like, I know that you're angry right now. Do you know why you're feeling this way? Do you know why you feel, fuzzy and hot inside? Do you, what got you here? And they might not be able to answer those questions, but navigating through some of those things and saying, okay, let's say they hit a friend. So instead of hitting your friend, that was you trying to get that out of your system. So this is a better way to get that out of your system. And then you can, navigate to drawing or holding a stuffy, like squeezing a stuffy really, really tightly. Little things like that, like a distraction, like, okay, this emotion is important. I'm not trying to change direction from that emotion, but this is a better way to release that feeling that you had inside.
Mm-hmm. And I'm even just thinking back to our first conversation around the technology of how the minute something is stressful, we reach to something that is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. You take the easy out sometimes. And sometimes the easy out is, punching somebody, and you don't want to do that.
Yep.
Right? You don't want to pick up the phone. You don't want to hit a friend when you're on the playground at recess. And so finding a way to like hold it for a minute and then think about how to work through that. Is it taking a deep breath and counting to 10? Is it turning and walking away for a minute and finding someone to talk to? Is it, okay, I need to release this. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to draw or paint or color or sing or dance or whatever it is. Finding a way to still release, we need to release the emotions that are big. They need to get out and be expressed. So it's finding that healthy expression to get those to help us process through them.
Yes, such great things to just talk about how we can instill these techniques, the strategies is what I want to say, for managing stress and these emotions and building that resilience to bounce back when things get hard.
Yeah.
This is all great stuff. And I know we talked a little bit about on the parent side of how it can be weird and uncomfortable because it might not be what we're used to and we might not be good at it. But do you have any tips then for the parents of how they can work through that, of maybe that is their experience of they're like, I don't even know how to express my own emotions, let alone be vulnerable in front of my kids to like help them. Do you have any tips for parents that might be their situation?
Yeah. So this is part of that learning experience, right? Like we all need to work through what is best for us to navigate some of these hard conversations, hard situations. So if you have, whether it's a young child or even a teenager, and let's say they're in the middle of a very big emotion, one of the worst things you can do, and every parent out there who's ever had a toddler is going to say, if your toddler's worked up, the worst thing you can do is also get worked up. Getting frustrated isn't going to help them. So finding a way to calm yourself. And, one thing I always did with my kids when they were little, if they got really worked up, I would have to take a deep breath, but then I would actually kneel down to be eye to eye, not to have that confrontational, but just to be like, okay, let's just breathe together. What's going on? Tell me what's going on as best you can, right? So even with teenagers, being able to say, okay, listen, they might be slamming doors. They might be shutting you out and, yelling at you or snapping or whatever it is, or just defiant. And don't just brush that off as a moody teenager, right? Find a way to address it in a very non-confrontational way. Maybe they went into their room and threw a fit and slammed the door. So give yourself, count to 10, gentle knock on the door. Hey, is it okay if I come in? And sit on the foot of the bed. Again, you don't have to stare them in the eye and hover over them and be like, I'm your parent, tell me these things. But just be a human in that moment and just, express that compassion. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing what that will produce and unravel, and what that will open up. And even if that's, because again, you're not trying to fix it, you're not trying to solve it. So even if that's just the gateway to be okay, we should probably go find a therapist, or we should go this, or in extreme, circumstance, okay, let's call the 988 suicide and crisis lifeline number. Let's dial it, let's text it, let's get on the computer. There's some extreme circumstances, but sometimes that conversation can just be the opening of even more to help your child through. Yes.
Well, you already kind of touched on my next question of just what resources are out there. So we've covered a lot of just, how we can start instilling open communication, things like that, how we can spot maybe some mental health challenges. That's all great on the prevention side. But what happens when someone, a parent out of nowhere, walks into a situation that, they don't know how to help their child? What resources are out there in that moment when emotions are heightened all around? Are there support groups? Are there other parents you should reach out to, or, what other resources are out there for maybe not prevention anymore. Now we need to handle a situation.
Yeah. Now we're in crisis intervention mode.
Yes.
So there are quite a few resources out there, and even on the prevention side. So I'll go through a little bit, and we're pretty lucky in North Dakota and really in this region in general, but at least in the state of North Dakota, we have a really great Health and Human Services Department at the statewide level that take suicide prevention and mental health awareness very seriously, and are constantly working on programs and developing developing ways to fill needs and gaps in the community, and get community people together that, hey, you specialize in this, you work on this, let's get together and see where we can spread our wings a little bit to fill some of the gaps that we have to provide that support. So that's first and foremost, that's really awesome that our state is doing that on a state level, and that we actually have so many different organizations in this region that are capable of helping. So that alone is incredible. But of course, there's the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number, and that's a national number, that 988. It's answered locally by First Link. And you can call, text, online chat 24/7, 365 days a year. There's no judgment. It's anonymous. You can call for a friend. You can call for your child. You can call for a coworker. You yourself can do it for yourself. And one of the cool things that they have too is they actually have a care and support team also. So you can actually be a part of the care and support team, in that if you call and you get through this crisis, you can have them continue daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins. So they'll have someone from their team, you signed up for this, and they'll call you back and say, hey, it's been 3 days since you called. I just want to check in, see how you're doing, and be that person even beyond that crisis mode. So that's actually pretty cool and incredible too. And the other thing, First Link also has the 211 number, which is community resources as a whole. So if you need shelter, food, if you need to know where to find a good doctor, so you can also find therapists and support groups by contacting that number. And depending upon what you need, they can help connect you with it, which is really cool. We have a very active AFSP chapter in North Dakota, which is great. So September is coming up. They have their Out of Darkness Walk in September, but there's all kinds of groups like that. We have really great therapists in our region, and regardless of the organization that you're using to find your therapist, we have excellent therapists. And if you go to therapy, if you go to therapy and you have a session and you're like, I don't really like this person, and then give it a couple times and you might surprise yourself, and they might be someone that's great for you. But as with anything else in our life, not every therapist is going to be like the right person for you to talk to. So it's okay. Like, don't quit on therapy because you had a therapist that you just couldn't connect with, right? Keep going, keep trying. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on yourself. Having those regular check-ins is fantastic. We were really lucky. Selma had a therapist before Liam died. She was already had a connection to someone and was communicating with them. And so that really helped her through after. And I had an incredible therapist after as well that first time I probably wasn't like the biggest fan, but I also wasn't the biggest fan of like talking about the hardest thing that's ever happened, right? But she stuck with me.
Yep.
And I love her to death. She's one of the most incredible people that there is. And so, don't ever, like I said, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on someone who's trying to help you. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's all different kinds of support groups. There's support groups for parents. There's peer support groups for teens. We don't really do, as a foundation, peer support in that way where we have like group meetings and things like that. But we are always available. And if we can't sit there and help you through that, then we'll help connect you to someone who can. I've been through mental health first aid, the assist training that if you're calling 988, what those the individuals on the other end of the line, that training, I've been through that training, a bunch of different trainings through my research, because we generally do want to not just be supportive, but be a level of support for other people that might be going through crisis as well. So,
And September is coming up,
Yes.
and it's National Suicide Prevention Month.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, what does that mean to you?
Well, so it's exciting month is not the right way to put it, but there is a lot of emotion and energy in September. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Suicide Prevention Month is a whole different ball game in that it's not just there's a lot of survivors that come out there and say, listen, believe me when we say this is not the answer, but we're here, we're still trucking along, we're supportive, we're open, we're loving. Come out if you are struggling at all, any way, shape, or form. We are here for you. And it's a way to show up and to be there and to remind everybody that, yeah, there's some big feelings that happen in this life. Life is hard. There are really deep valleys and then really, really high mountains to climb sometimes to get out of those valleys. And when you get to those high points, it feels really great. And then if something rocks you again, that hurts, right? There's disappointment, there's loss, there's breakups, there's challenges, there's loss of jobs, there's illnesses, all kinds of things that happen. But all of that can be experienced and gotten through and overcome. The only thing that can't is making that final decision to take your life. And we don't ever want anyone to feel like that's the only way out, because it's not. And it's not the way to go.
It is a powerful month, and there's a lot of meaning and messages behind it. And I am very grateful for your guys' work, but all the resources you listed, that those are available, especially during an awareness month where it's like, all right, everyone, let's blast our resources. You know, you do that year round, but in this month specifically, because we're going to reach someone.
Yeah, right. And that's the other, like, we don't ever stop. We don't just have 2 months a year. Like, we are mental health awareness and suicide prevention every single day, because we don't want any other child or family to suffer, and to think that they have to navigate this alone. But the nice thing about having really big, powerful months where everybody is really focusing on it is that maybe there's something that you're like, well, you know, I know you have all these extra things, but I'm kind of this type of person. And you might just find that one thing that connects with you the most, and that's going to help you get through. And so the really beautiful thing about these big, powerful months is it is a reminder of how many people are around you in this community, in this state, in this region, in this country, that want to see you thrive, that want to see you happy and healthy and successful and living your beautiful life.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for just being here and having this conversation with me today, talking all things prevention, walking through your story, and just thank you again for sharing that. And my last question for you is just, how can the community support the 463 Foundation, and what exciting things do you guys have coming up?
Yeah, so supporting the foundation, we're always part of Giving Hearts Day. That's actually our biggest fundraiser every year, bringing in for that. But one of the things that we do as a foundation is we get into middle schools and talk with seventh graders in specifically seventh grade health class about mental health, about suicide prevention. We talk about big feelings and small feelings and relationships and how to get through those extreme moments, and then things to do daily to help put ourselves in the best position possible every single day. So if you're a seventh grade teacher, or you're part of a school district and you want that message brought to your classroom, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll see what we can do to get there, because we'd love to. We offer that for free to schools. That's the donations that come in help support our mission to save lives. And so we offer it. We also host the Liam G. Med Memorial Baseball Tournament. We just had our 5th annual this past June. Our 6th annual will be in June of 2026. That's wild to say, but that always needs volunteers. We run that with sponsors to help provide a bunch of those resources and messaging throughout the weekend. So if you're interested in that, of course, reach out. And just, we do a lot of booths and community engagement. So if there's anything that you're doing, I talk to businesses, I talk, at churches and schools, whatever it is. So if you just feel like you need some support, more information, reach out and let us know, and we'll help connect with that.
Wonderful. Well, that's all great to know. So thank you again for sitting down today and just having such a, fun, but also not fun conversation, because it's the ugly stuff, but it's great to shine light into it. So thank you again for just being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a really great conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Having more open and honest communication around mental health as a family is so important. I admire Elizabeth's strength today as she told her story and inspired us to focus more on preventative methods so no one else ever experiences what her family went through losing her son to suicide. I love how she shared so many practical ways to be a good role model for our kids in expressing how we're feeling and dealing with challenges. Also, not trying to fix our kids' emotions by allowing space to just sit and listen, as well as also embracing the uncomfortable conversations and not being afraid to bring up the hard things in life. The 463 Foundation is working to instill more hope and resilience through suicide prevention resources so that no one ever feels alone and unable to overcome whatever battles they are facing. Don't forget that you can check out more at the463foundation.org. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time on the DMF podcast. And remember, we are called to serve.